listening to Range Minded from Independence Indoor Shooting. Before we get started, make sure you find us on Instagram and Facebook at Range Minded Podcast, and if you could, leave us a rating and some feedback from wherever you get your podcast from. All of it really does help us out a lot, so we thank you for helping us. This is episode 149, where we talk about what we think the future of gun shows, private sales, and internet sales are going to be. You never know what's going to happen politically, so we kind of spitball about what we think the future of those kinds of gun sales are going to be, and the answers may surprise you. Thanks for listening, and as always, we hope you enjoy episode 149 of Range Minded, the future of gun shows, private sales, and internet sales. Hello and welcome to Range Minded from Independence Indoor Shooting. My name is Mark Long and I am joined as always by...
What's happening? Hey, it's Steve on the Eastern Front, not the Western Front.
How are you, sir?
I'm doing good. It was such a nice day today. Has it been warm over there?
Yeah, it hasn't been too bad. It was a lot warmer last week than it is this week, but that's okay. We'll take it.
It was like 50 degrees today, which is pretty nice for over here.
Sure, yeah.
Did you get the short-lived rain today?
I did.
It rained on over there. It's supposed to rain over here too. So
yeah, we had about an hour of rain.
I like Boise this time of year. It's not too crazy. It's not too bad.
Yeah, we're at the little bit of a spring right now, so it's we'll take it before it gets to be 100 and 105 degrees in April. Or I'm sorry, in June, July,
April.
August. No, June, July, August.
Happening quicker this time of year.
I meant to say that we're going to be enjoying March and April weather in the next few months before it gets too hot in like June, July, August. So
yeah, it was snowing in Texas and a heat wave in Idaho.
Yeah, crazy stuff, man. So, and we are also joined, as you heard, by Nick Hoffer as well from HoffTech Industries. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great. Just getting my week going and ready to go. So
yeah, we're recording on a rare Monday as opposed to a Sunday. So a little different, but I mean it's still all good. So we're going to talk about gun shows and the future of gun shows and private sales and internet sales and what we think is going to happen with that. Because Nick, you were at a gun show this weekend, weren't you?
Exactly, which is why we'd be recording on Monday and not typical Sunday, because I was at a gun show yesterday.
Yeah, so tell us.
Yeah, it was interesting. It wasn't as eventful as I had expected for the first gun show of 2021, but it was good, but it wasn't as busy as I thought it would be.
Really?
So you were, I'm guessing it was the one at the Ford Center, is that right?
Yeah, actually, this time they did it over in the arena next door. The
oh, really?
What do they call it? The Equine Center or whatever, the horse place. And I actually like it better when they do it over there. It feels more open. It's actually a better experience than in the actual Idaho Center.
It's probably a little more open, I would say, right?
Oh yeah, it feels a lot bigger. There's room to spread out the tables, be compliant with all CDC guidelines.
Right, that makes sense.
Was there more or less tables than you expected?
There was plenty of tables. The last year, every gun show that I've been to, whether I was exhibiting or just there to see what was going on, there's not been any empty tables. So it was sold out again. They maybe could have added maybe 10 more tables because of the way it was set up, because they did it in the other building this time, but it was definitely full. I like the local gun shows here because they always do really well giving me the spot that I ask for, which is great. But there was not a huge line. I said this was the first one, but it's actually the second one, because me and my dad went to the first one in January. We waited in line for an hour and 20 minutes to get in because they were only allowing 300 people in.
Oh, geez.
And this weekend on Saturday, there was a line of probably 100 people out front at 8 o'clock when it opened. And Saturday was fairly busy, but Sunday was unexpectedly slow.
Oh, really? Usually Sunday's like busy.
Yeah, they normally start out a little slower because you got people go to breakfast, go to church on Sundays. But yeah, the afternoon never picked up. So
Interesting, yeah. So go ahead.
It always surprises me, but then I remember that Idaho gun shows are always more swap meet style compared to like when I used to have been to shows in other states where they have a lot more modern vendors. The gun shows here are always more antique and like collector based.
Which is one thing that, and maybe I'm pretentious. I hate that.
Really, you don't like it?
It's cool, like if it's firearms history related, like, or even some military nostalgia type stuff. But if it's there just to look at bobby pins from the 1930s, I don't want that there.
You only want guns.
Well, or at least outdoor stuff. Right.
I will say this. So every time I exhibit at any gun show, I swear I have the best neighbors in the entire show. And it's not always what you expect either. One time I was next to another holster maker. Both of us were pissed. By the end of the weekend, we're best friends. We talk every single day for the last 3 years. So this time I was next to it's called like traditional cedar homes. They were log cabins. Mm-hmm. They're kits. And you go, oh God, it's a log cabin booth, right? That was probably the busiest table in the whole place.
Really?
Was people talking to these people from Salt Lake about buying log cabin kit homes.
Well, that's good for you.
Yeah, it was great. Plus, the people who were running it were phenomenal. Like I'm going to Salt Lake in May, and they invited me to go to Park City with them where they live. Go to dinner.
Damn.
Not a bad place to go.
Yeah, it was a great show. It just wasn't all that busy. Ammo prices weren't crazy. I saw that, and it wasn't sold out. So you could still go there and you could buy 9mm 5.56. There was people walking around with their signs that they had stuff for sale in their backpack, but those people wanted to sell stuff more expensive than you could buy it at the actual show. So they probably didn't do very well.
So how many vendors were there, would you say?
There's easily 100.
Nice.
So that's a lot. That's a fair amount.
Yeah, there's easily 100. I handed out 500 cards at the show. So that means I talked to at least 700 people.
Wow. So over 3 days, that's, about 230, 250 people a day.
Well, it was only 2 days, and it was Saturday.
It was only 2 days. Yeah, sorry.
Saturday was 8 to 6, and Sunday was 9 to 3.
Not bad.
So yeah, it wasn't bad at all, and I already got 3 phone calls today for people coming in for custom holsters. So it's good that I went. It was 100% worth the $75 that it cost for the table. I did some sales there in person, some stuff that we had already built at the shop, but mostly I just go there to meet with people and
network a little bit.
Yeah, kind of network, kind of let people know that we have the shop open now in Meridian, that they can stop by and bring their stuff in, which people get pretty excited about that. So it was really good for me. I got to meet some cool potential new customers. Plus I got to meet those people that were next to me, which that was worth the $75 just to get to meet them.
It sounds like a pretty good overall gun show, and I mean, I think in all of our experiences, gun shows can be kind of hit or miss. It depends on where you're at and what how marketed it is and what kind of vendors are there.
Yeah,
and like I said, the Idaho Center gun shows, they're definitely swap meet style. I mean, you'd be hard pressed to find a table that was selling more than like 3 AR style rifles.
So there were like full-fledged gun shops there at all, or not really?
I think there was like 3. I know 208 Precision was there. They're out in between Star and Emmett. They had like 5 tables out there, and then there was, I think, 1 or 2 other FFLs there that had multiple tables with a bunch of guns, but not like I see like when I go to Arizona or Salt Lake, where there's actual small gun shops that literally pack up half their store and sell guns at gun shows.
Right. Well, and that's what we've talked about is that you see that sometimes too, and then you see, like you said, the one man FFL guys, and they're usually selling Glocks for $800.
Yeah,
yeah, and I saw some decent prices. Like I saw N5 Glock 45, which is the basically 19X black front serrations MOS for $535.
Well, that's pretty good.
That was
what my question was going to be, is what the prices were that you were seeing.
I would assume that gun was used for that price, because I know they're like $650 brand new. But yeah. There was a brand new Glock 43 in that same case that was like $525.
It's really not outlandish.
That's better than $800.
Prices aren't crazy. Yeah, and that's the thing. The prices weren't crazy, so I'm sure that some of them sold. But it is a different experience for me, because when I think of like a gun show, I'm like, oh, there's going to be all this stuff that you see on the news that they don't like. You never see any of that. Like,
yeah,
you never see what the media what do you call it? Like the perception that they give of what a gun show is, where people are illegally buying and selling guns and getting these ghost guns and AR-15s and AKs are being sold prevalent. You have to actually hunt to find those type of guns at gun shows, even when it's not this type of like climate. I never see that type of stuff really at the Idaho gun shows, or even some of the ones that I go to in like Utah and Arizona. It's definitely not what you see on the internet, what they try to portray on the internet. Well,
and the other go ahead, Steve.
I was going to say, when I've been to gun shows, like I've never seen anything like what the media says ever, just like you're saying. Like, and I'm sure there's some parking lot deals that take place, but as far as like as ridiculous as what everybody, the left thinks they are, I've never ever witnessed that. And I've been to a few, not a ton, but I've been to a few gun shows.
So they have now, I don't know how long it's been since you've been to a gun show, Steve, but they actually have a group that goes from gun show to gun show. The only thing that they do is background checks.
Really?
So they have 3 tables set up, and you go over there and you get your background check, and then you can take that to the tables and not have to wait for them to do it again.
That's kind of smart.
Like getting pre-done a 4473.
I don't know if that's completely legal, actually.
I don't know
it's smart, but
I don't know how it works. I don't know how it works because I've never done it, because I don't buy shit at gun shows. But
because you have to state in the background check if it's
what you're buying,
a handgun or a long gun or receivers.
So maybe they have to pick the gun out, and then they go have that table that booth do the background
that would
and
have
they come
to be,
back.
That'd have to be the process. They'd have to have the serial number and all that stuff filled out. Not that the ATF wants a serial number, but it has to be filled out on the form. And
I think the main benefit to that, and the main reason that the shows do that, is because what they're doing is people are actually doing background checks for private sales.
Oh.
So say I was walking around with a gun, and I could go over there and be like, well, I'm going to sell it to you, but I want to fill out a 4473, and they'd let you do it.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with that. You can absolutely do that. We've done that at the store more than once.
Yeah, so I think that's probably the main focus of it. But I know there's always a bunch of people over there sitting around those tables.
Good on them.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty smart. And I mean, that kind of dispels that myth, that whole gun show loophole thing,
I've still never understood what that is.
Well, Steve, why don't you tell us what that is?
Well, so apparently in the perspective of the anti-gunners, that anybody can go to a gun show and buy anything they want without any kind of background check whatsoever.
And let me stop him for a second. I searched that place high and low for a full auto machine gun and could not find one.
Weird. Or a suppressor, probably, right?
There wasn't any of those either.
So, so to create fear, right? They generate these these at most half-truths about people being able to go to a gun show and just buy a gun without any kind of background check. Now, in most states, a private party can exchange, buy and sell firearms without any licensing or any background check. Some states mandate background checks, which is fine, I guess, whatever. But it is highly against the law, and they will lose their license if any dealer is at a gun show and they're transferring firearms without a background check, because they have to account for every firearm that comes in and goes out under that FFL.
Because no matter what location they're at, they're still a business. They're still accountable for their inventory.
Right.
Yes.
And they still have a bound book and everything.
The ATF considers, in fact, if you look next time you fill out a 4473, if you're going through the paperwork, the paper copy, not the digital copy, you can see where it says something about where location or gun show or whatever. Was this a gun show? And it's the side that the dealer fills out. But so an FFL holder has to put that information on the 4473 to properly dispose of that firearm. So as far as the myth of being able just to go pick up a gun, slide some cash across the table, and then they slide across a Bren, that doesn't happen.
Yeah, that's not how it works, unfortunately.
I kind of wish it did, because, man, we could have some cool guns.
A lot of cool guns, but it's not the real thing.
Yet again, I'm telling you, there was not a lot of cool guns.
Well, so
at the gun show,
that kind of leads.
Maybe they sold them all before you got there.
I was there Friday before it, but I guess that's subjective to what people think are cool guns. But like M1 Grands aren't like really cool guns to me.
No, they're a collector. They're cool, but they're not like. Yeah, they're not full auto, like, I don't know.
Well, the Idaho Automatics Club was there. Yeah, they had some machine guns there, but it's not like you could buy them.
No. Right, and those guys are really solid. We've had those guys in the store a few times.
Yeah, they're pretty cool.
You could look at it. They would explain to you the guns, and even the automatics that they have, they're all like Vietnam, World War II stuff. They're not anything.
You mean they're not modern? They're not brand new.
No, they're not. They're all pre-banned stuff. I talked to the one guy about the thing. He said that the one that he had that was transferable that he had for sale for $50,000.
Yeah.
And I did watch someone buy a shotgun for $15,000.
What? At the gun show?
Yeah, it was $14,750.
Damn.
Wow.
Did they do a background check?
Yeah, it was from a dealer.
What kind of shotgun was it even?
It was an over and under, but I don't know what. I didn't get too much. I was headed to the bathroom, and I just walked by, and this guy was literally counting out stacks of cash.
Did you say you have holsters for sale as you were walking by?
Yeah. I walked up to him. I was like, "What are you buying?" He's like, "I'm buying this shotgun." He told me the name. I can't remember now, but he pointed at the case, and it was like a hand engraved wood case that had 2 barrels.
That's awesome.
It must have been something special. It must have been something special, and he obviously, whoever sold it to him, must have came from out of town, and he had already known that he was going to buy it.
Good on him. Good on the guy being able to have the money, the funds necessary. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. Absolutely. Good for him.
So I would venture to guess that was the biggest deal made at the gun show.
Oh yeah.
That's a big deal.
Yeah, I was going to say I've never really seen that much money get transferred, but that's not true. We've had customers come through and spend very, very fair amounts of money. I will say that
I have seen much larger transactions than that in cash at a show, but it was Blade Show in Atlanta, and I've seen people drop $100,000 in cash at that show.
A lot of money, man.
Yeah, people walk around that show with bodyguards.
Really?
We should go. We should go, and I'll be your bodyguard for no reason.
I was like, you can be my bodyguard anytime. I walk around with maybe $1,000 in cash in my pocket.
That'd be hilarious. We should actually do that for fun, for no reason.
Yeah.
Walk around Walmart, whatever. We don't care.
I'll
just
hire
wherever.
You, Adam, and Ryan to be my personal security.
He's a lot taller than me. He's way more menacing looking.
Yeah.
Adam or Ryan?
Both, actually.
Well, so that kind of begs the question, which what we're going to talk about with this, in this episode, is the future of gun shows. I mean, Nick, do you think with where we're at now and everything that there's going to be a future for gun shows, or are they going to kind of fizzle out?
So I can't imagine. Here's the thing. I can't imagine gun shows going away unless there's actual legislation that starts like enforcing some sort of new rules on gun shows. But here's the thing that scares me about gun shows. I've been going to these gun shows, I don't know, 10 years consistently.
Sure.
And it's the same people selling the same type of stuff for the last 10 years. I don't see a whole lot of new faces.
Yeah.
So like the younger generation, I don't see a whole lot of them at the gun shows, and that's why like me and Steve were like, we don't go to gun shows to buy guns because there's not the guns that we're looking for, right?
Yeah.
So the younger generation of gun owners, like, I don't know that there's even a huge future for like traditional gun shows if they don't slightly change.
Yeah, and so how do you think they need to change?
Well, I don't necessarily know because, like I said, they're more like swap meets. So if you're looking for something to finish off like a collection or something to finish an old collectible build, like that's definitely the place to go. But I mean, you look at like where are people selling their AR-15s, their Glock pistols, their custom built rifles, or any of that stuff? They're going to Gunbroker.
Right, it's all like online. Right, it's all online. So,
yeah,
is it that gun shows are going to be going the way of the dinosaur and it's going to be all online, or is it still going to be the same old guys, doing the same, gun show stuff for the next 10, 20 years?
So maybe I just answered the question in a roundabout way, because with like HR 127 that talks about the limitation of online sales of firearms and firearms accessories, maybe things like Gunbroker are the things that go away. Yeah, and now all of that is pushed into gun shows.
Yeah, it might come back.
And I think gun shows do still serve a purpose, like you mentioned, like parts or whatever. I mean, I have family members that are collectors, and they understand how to use the gun show to their benefit to get the parts they need for maybe a turn of the century lever action or something, and they know who to talk to and they know how to get those parts. So I don't know if that's ever going to go away, but those people are dying. I guess. Yeah,
literally.
And that's basically what I was saying too. Like that generation of gun show goer who are exhibiting at the gun shows, like they're in their 50s and 60s. Yeah. Some of them even older. I talked to one guy who's 75. But that's a group of people who they go all over to these gun shows. So yeah, if you were to put a bug in someone's ear and be like, hey, I'm looking for this part, if they're at a show and they find that part, they know you're a buyer, they'll call you and say, hey, I'll be in Boise whenever, come down, I got that part that you want. Like, they do that kind of stuff.
Sure.
Which makes me kind of wonder, because where these older collectors are dying off, man, that sounds so callous, but their collections are getting moved on either to dealers that just buy a whole collection, or they get inherited by the younger generation that either they don't like the older stuff or they don't know what to do with it. And so that's going to get dumped. It's got to get dumped somewhere, whether it's at an auction house or at a dealer like us. Sometimes I actually know a guy in Idaho Falls. That's all he does with his FFL is travels the country and buys, $500,000 gun collections. It makes me wonder, though, like, you might be right with the online stuff. Maybe the gun show isn't completely dead. Maybe there will be a revival.
Yeah, at this point, I don't really know what I couldn't sit down and say, Mark, this is the future of gun shows. They're going away. Or this is the future of gun shows. They're going to make a huge change. Because honestly, I have not. The only reason I've used gun shows is to get in front of gun owners that didn't know who I was.
Right. Yeah. It's for your business.
That's exactly what this weekend was. Like the $75 to be out in front of maybe 1,000 people for the weekend. That's the way that I look at it. And so if I sell 5 holsters while I'm at a gun show, I'm good.
Yeah.
Because I met 500 people who are potential customers, but I also made my $75 back, and I paid for lunch.
Right. So it evened out, but it just, it maybe, and I'm not looking for what the actual answer, the definitive answer would be, but just kind of in your experience or in, your opinion, what it's going to be, because like you're right. It depends, I think, also on what, what legislation comes through. Is that, are we going to see maybe some more, are we going to see gun shows kind of come back into the fray, or are they going to die off because, you can get what you want over the internet? And I think, you brought up a good point about young people either auctioning off like old, collection guns or whatever, because they don't want the old stuff, or they just don't want guns in general. I think that's an interesting point. And because I have a friend who's an auction person too, and that he always talks about, I've got this old guy who's got this collection of 100 guns or whatever, and he ends up selling them all, but I think it's maybe to somebody who's only a couple of years younger. So, to go back to the legislation thing, is that, maybe, if online sales do kind of go, the way of the dodo, that we might have to go back to gun shows as it was back in the day,
And at that point, maybe I'll create my own gun show business.
Well,
because when I sat there this weekend, I looked around and I was like, man, they're missing out on so many opportunities to like partner and use like different marketing techniques that they don't even, the people who run that gun show, we talk about the gun show crowd being older. The people who run the local gun shows, they're in their 70s.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're super old. They've been doing it for 40 years.
The only way that you can book a table is to call, leave a voicemail, and then they call you back.
Yeah, that's pretty old school.
And I really don't want to see anything happen to the gun show community. Like, I think they're a vital part of the community, I think. And maybe I'm wrong, but they've
maybe they're not a vital part.
I think they're important.
I would agree with that. So I don't think you're wrong.
Yeah, same.
I think it does need to change, like you're saying. I think there's a lot of missed opportunity. You look at these big companies that sponsor those gun shows all across the West. They are a little dated. They need to do some rebranding, maybe. But there's, man, the gun community needs gun shows, I think, to reach out to people that don't normally go places, and they could really sell them as a way to get into the gun culture in a safe way.
So as somebody who's been to gun shows in multiple states, I haven't been to a ton of them, but I've been to gun shows in multiple states, right? So when I go to the gun shows in like Phoenix, Arizona, or Salt Lake, Utah, those are bigger cities, right? There's millions of people in those areas. Right. They advertise those gun shows on the radio. Like, I hear the ads while I'm there for the gun show on the radio.
And billboards.
And they also do billboards, they do bus stops, and they do TV ads. So when I'm in town, I see the ads for the gun show, and when I talk to people, they're like, oh yeah, they've been advertising this for the last month.
Really?
So in Idaho, you never hear about a gun show unless somebody tells you, oh, you're going to the gun show this weekend. And you're like, oh yeah, no, like, it's not.
In reality, I hear about them like, oh yeah, I was at the gun show this weekend. What? I had no idea.
Like after it was over,
exactly. And you're just like me. You're like, I didn't even know there was a gun show. I would have went. And you're like, I guess I probably wouldn't have. But instinctively, you're like, oh, dang it, I missed it.
Yeah.
But like in these big cities, I think it's a little bit different than here where we're from, because I think people actually look forward to them, thinking that it's like what the media portrays and that it's this big opportunity to go see guns, because people in other cities do get excited about them much more than here.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, and people like they prepare to go to the gun show in 2 weeks to see what's going to be there. So they are in those bigger cities. They are definitely different than the ones that you experience here in Idaho.
Well, and old man Rob told me that I have to go to the Reno gun show. Like that is just an experience that is like no other. And maybe one day I'll hit it, but I don't know.
I would say the one in Phoenix. It's usually late October, early November, and I can't remember what it's called, but it's a gun show as well as it's the like full automatic convention or something for all of those collectors.
Oh, geez.
So it's at the fairgrounds in Phoenix, and they have like the fairgrounds has a bunch of what look like airplane hangars. And so there's like 4 of them, and 3 of them are like what you kind of think of like a gun show here in Idaho is, but it's 3 full hangars. And then one of them is the SARS automatic weapon convention.
Wow. So do you get tables at that gun show?
So I've been there once 2 years ago when me and Terry were working together. There was 100,000 people a day that went through that show, and it was 3 days.
Wow.
I will help you work that booth if you get another table.
I'll go again because I love it. Like the experience was amazing. There was and I met a bunch of people from Idaho because it's in the winter time in Arizona, right? So everybody who has come from all over the country to winter in Scottsdale and Yuma and outside there, they all go to that gun show.
Yeah, all the snowbirds
all over the country. So it's a really good show to go to. I haven't been to the Reno one, but I will say that the SARS gun show in Phoenix was a different experience for sure.
That sounds pretty fun.
So really, it's like,
yeah,
it's geographically dependent.
I think that's true. I think, and maybe gun shows in California are different than gun shows in Idaho too. Like I've talked to people who are like, oh yeah, everything at gun shows in California is way overpriced.
Oh,
but
I'm
maybe
sure.
They have, I think everything there is way overpriced, but maybe they have different stuff there that we don't have here. So.
Well, yeah, that's probably very state dependent on what the gun laws are, because, in California, you have to be able to, you're not as able to sell nearly as much as you would be here. And so that inventory is a lot smaller, even if you're in a big city, and just kind of the general culture of guns in California versus Idaho or even Arizona or anywhere else is going to be way different.
Yeah. Yeah. And I wonder what it's like trying to actually buy one of the guns that are on the list at a gun show in California.
Oh, gee, and you have to wait, 10 days? And
the only way I'm ever going to experience that is if the Range Minded podcast sends me there for recon, because otherwise I'm never doing anything gun related in California.
I hate California. I'm sorry to our California listeners, but your state is beautiful, but it's messed up.
Yeah, there's a lot going on there, but that's kind of the nature of the beast, I guess. It depends on the state you live in and what those laws are that apply there, which is kind of weird to think about, Yeah. So
fat jerks.
So I guess we could extend that off, past, gun shows and stuff. What do you think that the future of internet sales are, and the future of kind of private sales are? Because I think that's the big thing that a lot of people, especially uninformed people, lose their minds about are private sales. And that's really where you don't necessarily need a background check, but you don't, there's good reason behind that, I would say. And, what do you think maybe the future for those things hold?
Wow. That's a scary question,
and it's pure speculation. Let me throw that out there. It's not necessarily going to be.
I just want to. I want to touch on the private sale thing really quick, and I want to kind of just ask you guys. But like, I feel like the whole private sale thing puts the responsibility on the two individuals making the private sale, right?
Sure.
So as a responsible gun owner and an American who's free to do what he wants, if I want to sell Steve a gun, I feel that it's my responsibility to make sure that Steve can legally own a firearm.
Yeah.
And that's what I've put on myself whenever I've sold a gun privately.
Sure.
Well, and that's why I always counseled people to only sell to somebody that has it concealed, because then you know.
Right.
Yeah, and so the idea that we're out here in Idaho private selling our firearms because it's our right to criminals is ludicrous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. I mean, I'm sure it happens. Like, I'm sure there's some devious stuff going on, and I'm sure there's people straw purchasing for people that shouldn't have guns. That happens. I wouldn't say all the time, but I'm sure it happens daily.
I think that's rarer than we think. I think maybe some bad people pull something over on somebody who's just trying to get rid of something, or lied to them about who they are, or maybe you didn't know them that well. But I think for the most part, we're pretty good at judging the people that we sell our guns to privately.
Yeah.
Well,
and when I say daily, I mean you think about how many guns are sold in a day throughout the country. I mean, it's a fraction of a percent of deviant purchases, I think.
Well, and for me, this is the scary thing when you think about it. You don't need to straw purchase or sell a firearm privately to a bad guy for a bad guy to get a gun. No. I don't know if anyone listening recognizes how many guns come into this country illegally every single day.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I mean,
not even through the southern border.
Yeah, no. I mean, they come from Canada. They come from the East Coast, the West Coast, every airplane that comes in. I mean, there's stuff entering this country nonstop. There's a whole Vice documentary on pistols made in
the jungle,
in the jungle where they're not even allowed to have guns, and they make them all the way up here to California to commit crimes with.
Oh, the Forged 1911s. Yeah, that's a hell of a documentary.
And yeah. Yeah, and if you guys haven't seen that, you need to. I'm sure it's on YouTube or something. The ability of these jungle manufacturers to make what they make is amazing.
It's insane. It's really insane to watch, and you watch it happen in real life.
And it goes from the entire journey of forging the frame to getting it to Costa Rica to getting it into Mexico to smuggling it from Mexico into California, and then when it gets to California or from Texas, wherever they cross the border at, to how it gets right to the end user.
Yeah, that's wild.
It's one of the most in-depth documentaries that I've ever seen on gun smuggling.
Yeah, for sure. So it's definitely worth checking out. But and that's the other thing I was going to say that I think is, I like about the Idaho kind of private sale law is that it's up to the buyer. It's not necessarily a responsibility of the seller to know whether or not that they're selling to a restricted person, because the assumption needs to be that person who is buying the firearm should know whether or not they're a restricted party.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's buying and selling a gun is no different than buying and selling a car. Like, you probably aren't going to sell a car to someone who comes up to you and says, "Yeah, I'm going to use this to go run people over in the school zone."
Yeah, that's true.
You would be an irresponsible citizen to say, "Oh, well, go do whatever you want with it." Like, see ya.
Here's the duplicate key.
Right. Yeah. Have fun.
Yeah, here's the keys. I'd recommend that you buy the upgraded steel bumper.
you need the bumper to bumper warranty.
Right.
Yeah, so I just think that like it's ludicrous to think that as gun owners we're like, oh, we don't care who we sell guns to. I think that gun owners are like the most picky. I've had people not want to sell me a gun because I didn't have my concealed weapons permit with me, and I'm like, okay, well, I guess I'll go to the store and buy it.
Well, and I mean that's the other thing is too is that there are you could fill out a bill of sale that has everybody's information on it. And if you have some issues, then you can consult that or whatever. And, you can kind of clear yourself of that liability. But I just think that, I can't imagine that those are going to go anywhere anytime soon unless they're directly outlawed. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. For sure.
What I fear, and maybe this is conspiratorial of me, is I fear that there's going to be another event, mass shooting or whatever. I feel like there's going to be one that's coming up, and that's going to give them the justification to chop things up even more.
Like that somebody bought it at a gun show, or somebody bought it from a private party or something, and then that's justification to end it.
Yeah. Well, what's more scary to me than all of that is the proposed 30 and 50% taxes on guns and firearms. Like that I think has a bigger impact than the idea of a gun show going away or internet sales going away.
Yeah, that would be kind of devastating.
Well, and even more than that is the registration stuff. Like, if you've really, if any of our listeners feel like, well, it's just a registration, man, that is pseudo. Yeah, it's just signing up for the confiscation order. That's all it is. Like any
why
kind
else
of
would they want registration?
Yeah, they want to know what.
Why do they want to know what and who has what? Why do they want to know that?
So they can take it away.
Because the justification is, well, we want to know where that gun came from or who had that gun if a crime is committed with it. Okay, well, there's so few crimes committed with weapons compared to how many weapons are out there, that the only reason that they would do that, and the only reason in history that it's been done, is like Steve said, so that they can come and take it.
It's happened in Australia. It happened in Germany. Like we have so much historical information where that goes, and that's what I fear. And Mark, you remember probably our first episode, we talked about the state of the Second Amendment, and I said it's never going to be the same as when we were kids. Yeah,
no, you've said that for a while now,
and I hope it doesn't happen that way, but it sure feels like it's going that direction.
Yeah, it's totally possible, man. Who knows?
What a Debbie Downer.
Well, that kind of leads me to my third point, or my third question that I wanted to ask was about internet sales, because there are places like Gunbroker, or you can buy from Bud's Gun Shop, or even from our website at Independence or whatever, that I think there's a lot of misconceptions about buying from places like that. That people think that you can just buy from the internet and then it'll get sent to your house and there's no background checks or anything like that, and that couldn't be further from the truth. So what do you think about internet sales, because there's been talk about legislation against those as well?
So obviously we have extremely well educated listeners, so they already know this stuff, but for when they share this with the new gun owners and their liberal friends to listen to, you cannot buy a firearm or anything serialized off of the internet without it getting shipped to a gun store or FFL holder.
Yeah.
It's the only way that firearms are purchased online. So with that said, if you buy from Bud's Gun Shop, which always has great deals on guns, you purchase the gun, and Bud's Gun Shop, an FFL holder gun store, takes that firearm and ships it to Independence Indoor Shooting, because they're an FFL, and that gun shows up. The gun store signs for it from UPS, because that UPS or FedEx, because that's the only way that guns can be shipped, and they have to be signed for on receipt to know that they were transferred correctly.
Mm-hmm.
They sign for it. They fill it. They log it in. They put it on the books, and they call you, and you come down and you fill out a 4473 and they do your background check and they say, oh yeah, Nick is allowed to have this gun. And then I get to have the gun that I bought online.
Yeah.
So it's so how much different is that than buying from the gun store? Well, technically it's harder than buying from the gun store because I had to pay for it at Bud's gun shop.
Right.
I had to wait for it to get shipped. Then it had to get shipped. Multiple people had to do paperwork on it through the shipping process. Yeah. Then it got received. It had to be tracked there and put in the system, and then have me called and come down and do the paperwork on my end. So it's actually more difficult to make an online purchase of a firearm than it is to go down to the gun store, show my ID that has my enhanced concealed weapons permit, and I can walk out within 15 minutes with the gun.
Right. Well, and you're going to, one thing you also need to think about too is that you're going to be paying a transfer fee. So, I mean, even if you get a cheaper price on a firearm, you're going to be paying a transfer fee on it, which could be anywhere from, $20 to $50 to $100, depending on what state you're in. Because I've heard that, California has, transfer fees that are about $100 or so, which is a significant chunk of change. That could be up to 20% of the gun or more, depending on what it is.
Yeah. So I go on Bud's gun shop, I buy a Glock pistol, it's $100 cheaper than what I can walk into the store and buy it for, right?
Yeah.
So I buy it. Well, I'm pretty sure that they charge you a service fee, which is like 3% or something because you're paying with a credit card. Then on top of that, they charge you for shipping, which is probably like $20 because it's got to be signature, and
it's got to be shipped a specific way.
Yeah, I think when you ship firearms, it has to be like 2-day shipping or something.
Yeah, handguns is a 2-day shipping.
Yeah, it's 1 or 2 day shipping. Yeah.
So it's like $20 or $30 to ship it, plus say $5. So you're at $30 to buy it from Bud's gun shop. Then you go to Independence to pick it up, the gun store, whatever gun store that is, and they charge you, I don't know, on average here, I think it's $25 for the transfer fee.
Yeah.
So really, you saved a little bit of money, but you had to wait 5 days for it to show up. And then if you don't have a concealed weapons permit, and you potentially had to go on a wait, so then you had to wait 2 or 3 more days for it. Like it's not that much of a benefit.
Yeah. Well, and what people may not understand is there's a chain of custody, each time that firearm exchange hands. So from the manufacturer, the distributor, there's an acquisition and disposition there, and then from the distributor to Bud's, there's a disposition and acquisition, and then from Bud's to Independence or wherever you're shipping the gun to, there's another acquisition and disposition, and then another disposition to the purchaser. So firearms are by far the most regulated product in the United States, by far.
Yeah, there's a lot that goes into it. Don't think that just because you bought it offline doesn't mean it's not going to get, traced back, or there's not records that say that you have that firearm, Yeah,
the ATF at any time can find out where that serial number went to.
Yeah.
At any.
Yeah, man. Crazy stuff. And so it's funny because that almost makes me think that, online purchases and stuff aren't going to change, because once they dive into what it is, unless they just decide, unilaterally that that's going to be that. And
I think it's the ammo that they're so concerned about the online purchase of, because these people that they talk about on the news, that the reason why online purchasing ammo is such a big deal, because these mass shooters that have been caught, that have had what they think is a lot. So 1,000 rounds of 223.
250 rounds.
Yeah, 250 rounds, and they had a 60-round magazine clip. And I'm like, cool. I hope you never go to Steve's house, because you will think that he is 15 mass murderers. Like,
only the paper targets.
Yeah. You've murdered 1 million paper targets.
All those trees.
They always say they purchased all that ammo online. Well, okay. Where'd the gun come from? Because the biggest that you can have as much ammo as you want in the world, the gun was still tracked somehow.
Sure. Yeah, you got to have both to make, to do evil. And if you don't have both, then it's a little bit difficult, and that's the thing I think that a lot of people maybe are surprised at, is that in most places you can buy ammo online without any kind of background check or anything like that. I know that, buying ammo in Illinois, you have to provide your FOID card number or whatever, but, it's at the same time, that's the only thing you need. I mean, that's by comparison, pretty much every other state, you don't need something like that. But, there's really not much there's no background check, I guess is what I'm trying to say, that you need to fill out in order to buy ammunition.
Other than California.
Yeah, and I think that's my fear. I think that they come after ammo really hard. They're already talking 50% tax on ammunition, and then a registration or some sort of background check to buy ammunition. So they're playing this game where, well, we can't take away your guns completely, but we can make them pretty much useless.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and I don't know if you remember years ago, there was some state representative where she was talking about, or she couldn't understand why, well, once the magazines are gone, then they can't use their guns anymore. So let's just completely ban magazines. I mean, she had no concept of what a magazine was. She just thought if we got rid of magazines, then they couldn't shoot the guns anymore.
Right, because they're one-time use and you can't hold on to them.
Yeah, and she was completely serious. Like, I can't remember who it was. There's a video floating around, but it was ridiculous. And that's really the problem is these legislators, I don't know, they sit with the Mom Demand Action group that really have no clue about how anything works, and then they fill them full of these talking points, and then because these legislators have a visual platform with television or whatever on the national stage, they regurgitate these inaccuracies and then make them sound even more scary than they really are. And then the public that's unwilling to do homework just believes it.
Well, it's amazing to me that someone can go on TV and say some of the things that these people say and not feel like complete idiots when they listen to it coming back.
Yeah. Like, Sheila Jackson Lee, when she talked about holding an AR-15. Have you seen that video? Where it is so heavy she couldn't hold it, and the recoil is enough to break your shoulder. Why anybody would ever want one of these? Like, so you didn't really hold the AR-15, is what you're saying?
Doesn't seem all that accurate to me.
So something I would say about the whole ammo side is, I think that if the founders, when they wrote the Constitution and the Second Amendment, considered the fact that these politicians would come after the components of the firearms, that would have been a much more rock solid amendment.
Yeah.
Because who would have thought, like, they made sure to say that it was a right for us to have firearms, but there was never an issue about ammunition back then.
Well, I think it was probably understood that when they talked about arms, it was everything. Like,
yeah, when they wrote that, a firearm is nothing without all of the components to make it functional. That includes magazines and that includes ammunition. So in my mind, there shall not be infringed means that there's no nitpicking of what's covered and what's not. It's just like with the First Amendment. There's no nitpicking on what kind of speech is covered and what's not. Like, Facebook doesn't get to say, well, we don't like what you said, so that isn't covered. And the media doesn't get to say, well, we don't like what you said, so that isn't First Amendment. And the government doesn't get to say, well, we don't like the fact that you spoke out against Group B, so we're just going to take you to jail. Like that's not how it works on any of that.
You okay over there, Steve?
I've been fighting this. I've been fighting this cough for a while.
Yeah,
I can't get rid of it.
Yeah, no, you bring up some good points.
It's not the Rona.
But yeah, I mean, I guess, the big thing with firearms and stuff right now is just that, misinformation and miseducation or whatever. And, what can we do to prevent that and to put that right information out there? Is that taking more people shooting or, what do you guys think?
Go ahead, Steve.
I was going to say, I think that's definitely part of it, but I think just having conversations with people, like if man, I got to stop saying like so much. If we just, man, this is going to sound terrible. I guess if we just came out of the closet about being a gun owner and actually shared, there's so many normal people that own firearms, but because we don't want to upset the apple cart, we don't want to be as different, we just don't say anything. And that's been a problem, and that's why we're where we're at, is because we haven't been vocal about what we like to do on our pastime, shooting guns and whatever. And other groups are very vocal, and they get what they want. And we've just like I said, we just didn't want to upset any apple cart. We just kind of got along.
Yeah, and I don't think it's about talking to non-gun owners anymore. I don't think it's about taking people who are anti-gun shooting or trying to convert them. I think it's about getting the people who are already gun owners and advocates for their Second Amendment right to stand up and say, yeah, I do support this, and I support everyone else who supports what I support.
Yeah, and then they'll know that they're not alone.
Yeah, because we've spent a lot of time trying to convert people who hate what we love and trying to get them to love it too, when we put a lot of effort into that.
Yeah. When
really what I think is important now is to get all of the people who already love what we love to stand up and say, hey, I support this too. And I don't think that I think that we should all just stand together. Because like Steve said, the people who are against what we love, they stand together in being against it.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And loudly.
That is a good point.
So,
yeah. Well, I think that's a good comment on which to close. We're coming up on an hour here. So I appreciate the good conversation from both of you. I think, I think if we do the right thing, and like Nick said, unite folks that are, all for this and become a little bit more vocal, that might be what we need to do to keep the Second Amendment going.
Yeah.
It's 100%.
It's something we all need to do.
Yeah.
We just need to be communicated.
Well, and it's not the easy thing to do either.
Yeah.
So
it's uncomfortable, but sometimes we got to do things that are uncomfortable.
Yeah. So, I think we'll end it on there. Like I said, if you have any questions or comments or anything from this episode, let us know. Podcast at iishooting.com, or you can find us on Facebook and Instagram at Range Minded Podcast. And Nick, where can they find you?
You can find me on Instagram and Facebook at Hoftac Industries, or at Nick Hoffer for my personal page, and Hoftac.com.
There you go. Well, thanks for listening. We'll talk to you guys next time.
All right. Be safe.
All right. Thanks, guys.
We'll talk to you next time.
Thanks for listening to Range Minded. Find us online at Range Minded Podcast on Facebook, or send us an email at podcast@iishooting.com. We're always happy to get feedback, episode suggestions, whatever you want to send us, really. And be sure to subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, and pretty much wherever else you get your podcasts from. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.